Hello everyone, welcome to WhiskyWars. Today we have the Bunnahabhain core range and I'm going to go through in a bit more detail about each one, the prices and where they differ. And then I'll rank which one I like the best at the end of it. Now if you've watched my previous video, it was actually blind ranking the Bunnahabhain core range. But I didn't go into specifics about each whiskey. And I didn't talk about the differences really between the two. It was more just a fun game of me not knowing which whiskey was which and ranking them, trying to eliminate as much bias as possible. Do let me know in the comments down below at the end of this video if you prefer this normal style where I go in a lot more detail about the whiskies and talk about their differences, or the more fun style of video that I did last time, because whichever people prefer, I'll do. But hopefully if you're thinking of getting into Bunnahabhains and you don't know which one to get, hopefully this video will be a little bit more insightful and helpful for you, which is why I'm filming it today. If you like this video, please drop a like on the video and don't forget to click that subscribe button. We're well on the way to 1,000 subscribers. I really think we can do it soon, so fingers crossed. If you haven't clicked the subscribe button already, please consider doing so. It would really be appreciated. And also if you think of helping a friend out, getting them into Bunnahabhains, please consider clicking the share button on this video and sharing it with people, getting more eyes onto the channel, which helps it grow, but also it helps people understand which Bunnahabhain they might like the best. Okay, let's get straight into it. All these whiskies are bottled at 46.3% ABV. They're natural colour and non-chill filtered, apart from the cask strength here in the middle is bottled at 60.1%. But that varies year on year. This is the latest one, the 2023 edition. So on my left, we have unpeated Bunnahabhains and we progress into the peated. We start off with the Strada, then we're going to have the standard 12-year bottled at 46%, the cask strength, the 2023 edition at 60.1%. Then we move into the peated ones. We have a peated and a sherried one, which is the Toy Da. Now that's Gaelic for the smoky too. So it's ex-bourbon and Oloroso sherry cask. And then finally we have the Moyna, which means peat in Gaelic. And this one they say has sherry in, but we'll talk more about that later. Okay, let's get straight into it. The Strada going first on the nose. Straight away, the first thing that comes to mind for me is mineral quality. And I know that's a hard word to envisage for a lot of people because I think it can be different for different people. For me personally, I think of like salty rocks, salty sea air, very coastal. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then just behind that, there's this lovely light and subtle red fruit note. It's not heavily sherried, this one, which I like it for actually, but the red fruits do complement the whiskey really well. And also you really pick up the oak and a little bit of pepper alongside that salt. So woody, salt and pepper, red fruits. That's pretty much the Strada on the nose. Moving on to the 12-year. I will talk about the colours as well actually, since they're all natural colour. And for me personally, the 12 is more of a golden colour. The Strada a little bit lighter, a little bit more yellow, like a yellowy gold, whereas this is more of an actual gold. Okay, the 12 on the nose. Way more red fruits. The sherry cask influence is imparting more flavour onto the 12-year-old. And actually it removes a little bit of that minerality that the Strada has, which I really like. The 12-year seems to be adding more honey. Think of honey-drenched red fruits. But there's a beautiful floral nature to the whiskey that's underneath that. So it's not going to be immediately apparent, but it is there for me. A little bit grassy. I always think of like a spring meadow. But for sure, the two dominant notes for me is like red fruits drenched in honey. Just a touch of something salty, keeping it back, balancing it out, but this is a lot sweeter than the Strada. And again, that pepper that I got in the Strada, not present on the 12. Okay, now we move into the 12 cask strength. very, very different. Very different. In fact, if you think the cask strength is going to be an emphasised 12, like it is with a lot of whiskies, not so on this. Not for my nose. I get far more complexity than what I was expecting in the cask strength. Of course, you always expect a little bit more, but this is a lot more for me. The floral, grassy nature of the 12 is just taken apart in the cask strength. It's not there at all. That honey note turns into more of a caramel. I get far more of a stronger nut presence here on the cask strength. Think of like a peanut brittle, a caramelized nut. That's definitely more so what you get here. There's also some spices in there too. Cinnamon and ginger, and oak spice as well, giving it a little bit of a prickly nature. It's got a little bit of bite to it. And for me, there's this lovely balance to this whiskey. For me actually, it's not as sweet as the 46%er. It has a little bit of bitterness in there, and for me it's this ground espresso bean, this coffee. It's really quite nice, it really is. Now we're moving into the peaty ones. We start off with the Toy Da. This is peated and sherried. And to my nose, this is a beautiful amount of peat for a Bunnahabhain. It's not overly peated at all, but that beautiful sherry nature of the 12-year comes through, albeit not as strong. The sherry note for me in the Toy Da is stronger than the Shiraz sherry note, but not as strong as the 12-year. Maybe something similar to the strength of the cask strength for that sherry quality. But it's a really nice earthy peat. It's not going to be a sweet peat. Certainly more earthy. I get a little bit tobacco on this whiskey as well on the nose. And for me, I really like that. Tobacco, earthiness, soily, but sweet. Red fruit still present, albeit not as strong as the 12, like I've said. There's saltiness there. Not so much pepper or oak. Think tobacco, earthy, peat, saltiness, red fruits. That's the Toy Da. Really, really nice on the nose. Okay, now we move to the Moina, which they say is also sherried. Sherried, oaky and peaty. But to my nose, this is going to be the least sherried of the 5. There's clearly sherry in it, but it's not immediately apparent for me at all. The oakiness actually comes across stronger in the Moina than it does in any whiskey. The Shiraz it's present, but I think the Moina has that oakiness turned up the most. Salt and pepper. Oaky salt and pepper, which actually I said about the Shiraz. Perhaps the Moina is almost like a peated Shiraz. Whereas I feel like the Toy Da, for my nose at least, is more of a peated 12-year-old. In terms of their taste, it's not actually just a peated version, but in terms of the flavours that I'm getting, that's the way I'm going to go with it. But there's a citrus in the Moina that the Toy Da didn't have, but ultimately not as sweet as the Toy Da. Okay guys, that's the nose in. The tasting will be a lot quicker than the nose in, because I think a lot of the notes are present on the taste, but there will be some differences, so we'll get straight into that now. Just before we do though, if you are enjoying the video, please consider leaving a like on the video, and please do click that subscribe button. We're well on the way to 1,000 subscribers, I can't believe it. We're actually going to get there, which is pretty cool, pretty exciting. So thank you so much for whoever has clicked that subscribe button, and if you haven't, please consider doing so now. It really would mean a lot. Let's get stuck into the taste. Again, very minerally, salty, sea air. Really nice. Not strongly sherried. Sherry presence is there, but very subtle. For me, this is more like salty sea air. Oak is coming through, salt and pepper are coming through. It's really quite nice. And I think unpeated Islays are not very common anyway as it stands. This whiskey, for the price, which I'll touch on later, really nice. Let's compare it to the 12-year. There is something I want to talk about. So, the finish is longer on the 12-year than the Shiraz, but there is this thinness and a little bit of ethanol to this 12-year. Now, what I will say is, if you see my previous videos, I have an Ardbeg Week Beastie cork in here because my cork broke when I did my last filming of this, which was yesterday. And it's been open for a couple of years. So maybe the bottle has gone a little bit bad, but there's this ethanol quality there and a thinness to it. So even though it has a longer finish, which I like, that thinness and that ethanol quality really stops me from loving this whiskey. And I really could love it because it's sweeter than the Shiraz. It's full of honey and red fruits. And again, just underneath that, once you acclimatise to the sweetness, you will start picking out these white florals, grassy, spring meadow environment, and it's really pleasant. But don't just think of the Shiraz as a younger 12, because they're really quite different. The Shiraz is going to be catered to people who aren't as sherry focused, and perhaps like a little bit more salt, pepper and oak in their whiskey. Okay, let's move on to the cask strength. Now this one is 60.1%. The 12 cask strength is a much darker gold. Almost that little bit of a red hue, like on a sunset, a really nice sunset. That's the sort of colour in this glass. A darker gold to the Bunnahabhain. So the lightest is the Shiraz. Now on the taste, extremely sweet, but a little bit more salty than the 12. Not as much as the Shiraz. It has the most intense sweetness, but overall the 12 sweeter because the cask strength has more salinity to it, and bitterness with that coffee bean pulling it back. So the cask strength comes across a little bit more balanced. What I would say with the cask strength is, think of a really rich and syrupy fruit cake. Think of sultanas, butter. That's where the cask strength's going to put you in that mindset. So more of a rich and indulgent, luxurious, dessert-like experience than the standard 12, which is a lot lighter. You don't get any of that floral meadow experience at all. But you do have the addition of the coffee, which again, that to me puts me in a dessert mood, because I have a lot of espresso martinis as well when I'm out for a dessert. Fruit cake, love that as a dessert. There's baking spices in there, cinnamon, but also ginger, and that oakiness just gives it a bite. The most complex of the three by far, and the most balanced of the three by far. It has the sweetness of the 12, but the saltiness of the Shiraz, but it also adds in woody bite, ginger, spice, and coffee bitterness. So really just getting a really full experience from this cask strength. And also, I forgot to mention, nuts. Think of caramelized nuts, peanut brittle, that quality, which I didn't pick up in the Shiraz. You get a touch in the 12, but not much. You get a lot in the cask strength. Okay, let's move on to the Toida, which reminds me a little bit of the Shiraz in colour, but a little bit darker, which perhaps is telling me there's a little bit more sherry influence. I've really enjoyed drinking this whiskey. I must admit, most of these bottles are close to being finished because I really enjoy the Bunnahabhain range. I do think it's a little bit slept on, especially the peated line, because I think people love the fact that there's some unpeated Islas out there and they think of Bunnahabhain straight away. But actually, when they do a peated release, it is good as well. This Toy Dart is very nice. Now, for me personally, I bought this bottle in, I think it was 2021, so it could be from older stock. I think it was, I could get this wrong, I think it was G Whisky who commented and said that the newer releases are just not as good as the older ones. So I can't confirm that because I've not bought a newer release, but that's something to consider with this whiskey. For me though, talking about this whiskey, I've got just full of praise for this whiskey. It's really nice. The peat's not too strong. It's balanced out by those lovely sherry notes. This is a really good one. It's not complex though, but it doesn't need to be. It's just beautifully simple. And then finally, we'll go on to the Moina, which colour-wise actually is very similar to the Toy Dart. Very similar. I feel like the Moina is the peatiest. There's a sweetness in here which could be indicative of sherry cask, which is what it says, but you're not really going to think red fruits like you do with the Toy Dart. For me, that sherry is turned down. A lot of oak on the taste, more peat. So peatier, oakier, saltier. Cracked black pepper, a little bit of citrus coming through, lemon, but for me it does verge on the artificial bathroom cleaner kind of lemon, like a lemon pledge, which isn't the nicest note in the world. Overall, some brilliant whiskey here. I do recommend all of them. I think their unpeated expressions take my heart a little bit more, and that's why I think it's more popular. I think it takes more people's hearts, just because unpeated Islay, again, it's not that common, and they do it very well. Okay, let's quickly touch on the price. The Shiraz on sale is £25, but RRP £35. I recommend waiting on a sale with this whiskey. The 12-year is £40 to £45 now. It's had a recent price hike. I think that's a little bit steep, but by no means if you pay it you're getting ripped off. It's still a great whiskey. The cask strength, now this is the interesting one. I paid £60 on offer. It's around £70 to £75. I think it's value for money, the cask strength. So I think out of the two, I would go for the cask strength over the 12-year. Even though it's a little bit more expensive, I think it's well worth it. Then we move on to the two peaty ones. The Toy Dart, again, retails for that £40 to £45 mark, so it's the same price as the 12-year. Now for me, actually, I think that's a little bit steep, actually. I'm not too happy with the price in there because this is non-age stated. And actually, some of the time, it can be the most expensive of the non-cask strength Bunnahabhains. And I think that's a little bit cheeky. Finally, we have the Moina. The appeal for this whiskey to me was the price. This was £32 all the time. It was always £32, and I think for that money, it's incredible. So the cheapest is the Shiraz. The Moina, very good value as well. So a little bit of a mixed bag with regards to pricing. If you want to know my ranking of these 5, please do check out that blind ranking that I did, where I ranked them 1st to 5th. I hope this video helped, guys. I hope it gave you an insight into Bunnahabhain and the differences between the 5. And if you enjoyed the video, please click a like on the video and don't forget to click that subscribe button. You guys are clicking the subscribe button quite frequently at the minute and it feels amazing. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has clicked that button. Also, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please help some other people. Click that share button and let some people know about this video. Hopefully we get some more people into Islay. I actually think Bunnahabhain's a great starter into Islay because you have unpeated, and then the Toy Darts are a bit lightly peated, but still that sherry, and then you can move into the Moyna, and then you can move into other Islers. So I think it's a lovely gatekeeper for the Islay region. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. By the way, I have recently made a Patreon account. If that interests you, that's in my About section on the YouTube page, and the link will take you there. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you all for the next Whiskey War.